Well, it's 6 o'clock and we want to call our city council meeting to order. We want to welcome all of you to our regular meeting on May 8th, 2013. And to begin our council meeting with, we've asked Councilman Segmiller to offer our opening prayer, and then Councilman Hudson will lead us in our pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this evening and for this opportunity we have to be together as citizens and participants in the city of Washington. We thank Thee for the beautiful weather which we enjoy, for the temperate climate and the many opportunities we have in this area. Thank Thee for the good neighbors and friends that we have that live amongst us and in other cities. We especially thank Thee for the many opportunities and the great blessings we enjoy. We ask that Thou would be with us as we consider the city's business and the citizens' input. Help us that we might make good decisions and do those things that can foster a strong community and good relationships. We ask that Thou would protect our service members and those who serve their time to protect our communities and help us stay safe. And ask that Thou will be with us during this meeting, and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and join me in pledging allegiance to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. To begin our meeting with, I failed to excuse our mayor to start with. He's out of town on business today, and so he won't be with us. We need to make sure he's excused. Our first action item is approval of our agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as outlined.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Hudson, seconded by Councilman Segmiller.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye. That's unanimous. Item number 2, announcements. Got a couple of announcements. First of all, the mayor has asked me to announce that this Saturday morning at 9 a.m., beginning here at Veterans Park, we will have our Mayor's Walk. It's part of the IHC 100 years celebration that each of our communities are hosting a Mayor's Walk, and our mayor will be here at Veterans Park starting Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, and we want to invite all of the citizens that would like to come join the mayor, and he's going to walk to some of the historic sites here in the community, and they'll have some light refreshments and whatnot involved with that, so we want to invite you all to come participate and partake of that. Also, we have our youth council here tonight that we want to turn a few minutes over to, and they've got an announcement to share with us.
Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Natalie Scoresby, and I am the Washington City Youth Council city manager. And we just want to thank you. We've had another great year with Youth Council, and especially we'd like to thank you for allowing us to use the Covington Mansion. It has blessed our experience, and it has helped us to have a home as a youth council. And we would like to invite you guys all personally to come to our graduation. And so I have announcements and invitations for you all. So thank you, and I'll pass these out.
You want to announce when that graduation is?
Yes, graduation is next Wednesday, and it will be from 6:30 to 7:30.
Great.
All right.
Super.
Thank you, Natalie.
I'll let you guys find your own and pass them down. Thank you, Natalie. And our youth council has done a great job for our community this year. And it's always exciting to see the next year roll around and so that'll be exciting. Our last item for announcement-wise, or at least that I have, is one that's kind of exciting. Within our community, we have the opportunity this council does a great job to show their value to the youth in our community, and the fact that we award about 4 scholarships to the youth of our community throughout the year. And tonight we have one of those scholarships that we are going to award. This is our Washington City Power Scholarship, which is awarded through our Power Department. And it is awarded to one of our youth that basically goes through the process of showing the importance of what municipal power is and the importance it plays in the lives of communities. And so I'm kind of glad the mayor was out of town and let me do this because it kind of gets a little close to home, but we want to award this scholarship tonight to Tayasha Turek from here in Washington. If Tayasha wants to come up. Just because I have a little insider information on Tayasha, she is actually one of the co-valedictorians of Pineview High School this year, 4.0 grade point average. And so she's done a great job through our high school representing Washington City. Any other announcements that need to be made by the council? Great. We'll move on to item number 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Anyone? Nope. Okay. Number 4, consent agenda. Approval or minutes, consideration to approve the minutes from the City Council meeting of 4/23/13, and the Board Audit Report, consideration to approve the Board Audit Report for April 2013.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Motion by Councilman Hudson, seconded by Councilman Segmiller.
Truman, aye. Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye. That's unanimous. Item 5, preliminary plat amendment. Consideration to approve an amendment to the preliminary plat for the Coral Ridge Townhomes by changing the number of units from 203 to 171 units by allowing larger buildings with additional living space. Located approximately at 4200 East, 2000 North, applicant Henry Walker Homes.
Thank you. As stated, the application is for an amended preliminary plat that you see on the screen. The council has this in their packets. It is dropping, as stated, the number from 203 units down to 171. This particular subdivision covers an area of 26.09 acres. With this drop, it now brings down the dwelling unit per acre to 6.55. The original approved was 7.78 dwelling units per acre. Basically, the reason for this change, as stated in the report, is market-driven. If you've been out, they have several of the more narrow, smaller units that just aren't selling as much, and the bigger, more spacious ones are. And so they're coming back in and changing, and it's just the yellow area that you see reflected in this change. The rest of it's built at this point. All the ones that are in white are already constructed or in the process of being constructed even today. So it'll just be this particular area up here. The road changes a little bit around this particular area where my pin is. They'll have to do a little bit of changing on water lines, sewer lines, etc. for that. The zoning on this is PCD, Planned Community Development. It's part of actually the Coral Canyon overall master plan. A lot of people don't realize that, but it is part of that. This particular piece was sold a couple of years ago from Suncor to the original developers and now picked up by Henry Walker Homes.
So Drew, if I'm looking at the white ones there, that's what this portion used to look like, is that correct? Those little tighter, smaller units?
A little tighter. There were still some of the bigger units. You know, some of these were scattered. Again, we're dropping, 30 some odd units. So there was quite a few, especially in this area of the more narrow sixplexes. And that's where they're just eliminating, making the bigger fourplex units or twoplex. And they are, personally, I really like the look of the twoplex, fourplex, bigger square footage. They really have an appeal to them with the covered balconies, et cetera, and quite an attractive unit. So they'll be going more to those on this particular proposal. The Planning Commission reviewed the request at their April 17th meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the amended preliminary plat for the Coral Ridge Townhome subdivision to the City Council, and of course based on the findings subject to the conditions that pretty much are standard. Again, this is the preliminary plat. Now they can come back and go for final plats that will come and reflect this particular proposal before you. So I will be more than glad to answer any questions. We had one person I think showed up to the Planning Commission, and he lives down in the originals. He was concerned about this particular area's not changed. It was an oversight on the engineer, but it really doesn't worry about this amended plat. It's already built to that, and it was just in his particular design, he was concerned about that from a 5 unit to a 4 unit. And, but again, it didn't have really any bearing on this proposal for that, so. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council might have. It's fairly straightforward, I think.
Seems
So,
to be pretty clear.
staff is really in favor. Again, I really like the looks. It'll improve the area with the change in that. It's a lot better project, a lot better looking project.
It's been an interesting project to see go up because it's one of those high-density areas, that, you know, units that we have that it seems that they've kept it very clean, that they don't seem to allow parking on their streets and things like that, so it's easy to get around in, things like that. Lowering the density might even help along with that, so I don't see any
Yeah, there
concern
is
with that.
actually lots of visitor. They have their 20-foot driveways, and they have lots of stalls down the streets that they build in. And, you know, the new area, you can see where those are. They're those little indented places off the roads for extra parking, and they pretty much cover that well. So a lot of these homes are being promoted and bought as second homes for people. So,
I'll move that we approve the amended preliminary plat as presented for the Coral Ridge Townhomes by changing the number of units from 203 to 171, located at approximately 4200 East, 2000 North.
We have a motion by Councilman Staley. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Hudson.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Sigmiller, aye.
Turek, aye. It's unanimous. Item 6, public hearings and related ordinances. 6A, public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change application Z-13-05, requesting to change the present zone from PUD, Planned Unit Development, to C2, Service Commercial Zone, located approximately at 850 East, 100 South. Applicant Kendall Turner.
thank you. This is a process. We looked at these next two zone changes. This one starting with. We did general plan amendments here in the last couple months. The council probably remembers this. And this is the next step in coming towards that. The Turners are wishing to expand their RV storage area and storage business also. And they purchased this piece from the Nisons. And now we're going through that process, and we're here at the request for a zone change. They are asking that 7.30 acres be changed from the current PUD to the proposed C2, which is service commercial. Again, the purpose is basically to expand their business. As stated earlier, this went through a general plan amendment and went from medium density to the CCOM, or community commercial, part of the land use designation in the general plan. The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their April 17th, 2013 meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-13-05 for the zone change from the planned unit development, the PUD, to the service commercial, which is C2, to the City Council, and based on the findings in your report. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council might have on this application.
Was there any opposition to this at the Planning Commission meetings?
No, we get our staff, my assistant Kathy's been flooded with a lot of phone calls because they get a lot of notices. A lot of them are just wondering what's going on, starting with the general plan amendment. So the calls get less and less as we move through the process. They'll still have to come for a conditional use permit through the Planning Commission when or if this is passed. So people will get another notice, but I think they know what's kind of going on. The only problems we've had is because they've drug all the weeds off, put the fence in, it kind of scraped the ground, and because we've had some pretty good winds this spring, we've had a few complaints about the dust, but we pass those on, and they try to get out and get it watered as much as they can and do that. So any opposition is mostly because it was dust related to just de-weeding the property, so to speak.
As I remember from the last time we met on this, essentially just expanding it so it's farther away from Telegraph Road. It's on the backside of the property there.
Yeah, it's not going any farther, east and west down Telegraph, but to the south in that area. So again, when most people realized it was just going to be storage, they, and realized that it could have been maybe townhomes in there, they were more happy to hear that they were expanding the storage business versus somebody coming in and putting in a townhome or a subdivision in there, so.
Well, and to be clear, that small, long piece just to the north of it is already storage.
Yeah, I think it's the Hunt, if I remember right, called the Hunt Storage Units. It's a
Correct.
separate owner.
And
And then the other thin line is an access. It's actually an emergency access up to Ridge Point development because they only have that one main entrance. This was required for them to put in. They actually had to buy this land from the Winter Haven folks years ago to have that emergency. It's a dirt, basically, access, but our emergency services could go that way and get into Ridge Point if for some reason that one access that's paved into Ridge Point was ever blocked with an emergency of its own. So that's what that particular thin line is. It
And
comes
then there's
down.
also existing storage on the other end of their parcel there. So this,
Those units right there, those rectangles are all the existing storages that the Turners have as part of the Bella Vista Storage Complex, so.
well, I think it conforms with what's going on around it.
That's why staff didn't feel, too uncomfortable with promoting the general plan amendment and the zone changes to expand that, so.
Okay. This is a public hearing. If there's anyone here to speak to this particular zone change application, we will open that public hearing and allow you to come forward. Seeing none, I'll come back to council.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Motion by Councilman Hudson to close our public hearing,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councilman
Truman.
Truman. It was on the tip of my tongue, it just wouldn't roll.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make the motion that we approve.
We have to vote.
Let's roll into item 6B. Oh,
Should we vote
we're
on that?
closing, yeah,
Yeah.
now we're closed.
Vote
Let's
on
go
the
ahead,
closed,
Councilman
okay.
Truman.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Seg Miller, aye.
Turek, aye. The public hearing is closed. Now, item 6B.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make the motion that we approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-13-05 to change the present zone from PUD to a C2 zone.
Motion by Councilman Segmiller to approve,
I'll second.
second by Councilman Hudson.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Seg Miller, aye.
Turek, aye. That's unanimous. Item 6C, public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change application Z-1306, requesting to change the present zone from OS open space to R18 single-family 8,000 square foot lots zone located at approximately 3650 South, 1100 East, applicant Walter Plum.
Also, just to pick up where the last one, this also what ran at the same time in the general plan amendment that we just currently did. This is a request to rezone 56.09 acres. The current zoning as stated is open space. The applicant is requesting to go to the R18 or the single-family residential 8,000 square foot minimum lots. Again, this parcel originally was split in the general plan land use map, almost right down the middle. It had the very low density and the low density. That's what the general plan amendment that was approved by the council a few months ago turned it all to the low density on that. And the R18 is one of those zones in that low density. The three proposals in the general plan are R18, R110, and R112 is the three different lot sizes that are applicable in the low density. And they are going for this R18 on this. The Planning Commission reviewed the request at their April 17th meeting, and that's why I'm kind of jumping this because as you can see in the report, the Planning Commission by a vote of 3-2 recommended approval of Z-13-06 for the zone change from open space to the R18 to the City Council. A lot of discussion was had on, some of them felt they'd rather see it to the R110, but as we talked to them in the Planning Commission, they really only had a choice to either recommend approval or denial because they couldn't ask the applicant to go to the R110. That's what they were applied for, was the R18, so they had the choice to either approve or deny. And but they had a lot of discussion on it. There are some factors with this lot that were, if you read through the minutes, the property to the east is BLM, and it's also in our, if you looked on the general plan, it's designated as a collecting pond for overflow water. Now, has there ever been any water in that? Most of you who lived here probably haven't seen any water in that designated area there. But there are two pipes that run through this property to go in there that are easements that the developer will have to deal with on that. So because of the configuration and the angles those pipes go, it's going to be tough for them to max this out. You know, if they were to keep it in a whole rectangle, and this was the discussion we had in the planning commission, to max those out at R18 lots, it would pretty much be either, you know, north and south streets or east and west streets. We figured they could probably come up with 225 to 230 lots on the acreage, taking streets out, et cetera. But because of those pipes, it is going to make some of those lots, they really won't be able to max out, was the final discussion on it. With the planning commission, why it recommended approval on the 3-2 was kind of tilted that way, taking into consideration the developer will not be able to make every lot in here R18 due to the configuration of the subdivision is going to be.
What is the pipe, what kind of pipes are they underneath?
They're drainage pipes. Mike could probably explain a little more. I'm just giving you,
Can you or Mike trace their location on the map there a little bit?
Mike, you roughly have an idea? They both go at angles, I know that much, but
And they both drain to
We
the
need-
BLM, correct?
they drain into it, yeah, from the southwest. You don't have to be specific. And then it tees and takes it in.
Okay.
So we're saying then that these drainage pipes would make it difficult for them to line up the lots?
Yeah, in essence, what I'm thinking, I haven't seen a design, but in concept or theory, you'd think they'd probably want roads that would go over those. Either that or they're gonna put them in backyards where two properties, it's gonna be one or the other, that abut. I can't see any other way. They can get creative, I'm not saying there isn't one, but just thinking it through, it's either gonna be a street over those or the backyards are gonna go at angles. So when you, again, you take a square piece and you start putting at least two angles in, it reflects, it kind of ripples out to the rest of it with the design with that. So they will have some odd shaped lots at a given point, depending on how they do those roads.
But I mean, obviously, we're talking about a zone change tonight and not a
Not a
preliminary
subdivision
plat.
design.
But I would ask the question is, are those pipes something that a developer could move or would ordinarily move? Or what would your thoughts be? Could they do that, or have you seen that before?
I have seen it before with very large concrete pipes, I believe 54 inch and not 48 inch. And that, they're the drainage pipes for the debris basins. And there's three debris basins, and they actually collect at this point and then go to the Fort Pierce Wash.
So it may be something that would be probably cost prohibitive,
It'd be
or
very expensive, plus the debris basins are actually controlled by the NRCS, and it'd be a process of getting them to approve the changing of the alignment of it. Plus the grade is so flat, you don't have a lot of options about moving them because of the grade. So
So do those pipes run into the BLM lot, or?
They come out.
Come out once it fills?
they're the drainage out.
Okay, so they're the spillway.
Well, they're not the spillway. There's a structure inside there that actually
So it'll fill and then start running out?
fills those structures and comes out, but there's actually a spillway on all these that actually will spill over just onto the ground.
If it gets that full.
Yeah.
Are they is there an easement for the pipes, or they're just there?
There is.
So there's an easement? Okay, so that would be a challenge for them to move as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the developer's planning on putting the roads, because it'd be very difficult to try to incorporate them in any kind of a lot, because we wouldn't allow any kind of a structure or a wall to be placed on top of those pipes. And we'd have to have access to be able to get to them if there's ever a problem.
What's the status of the road formerly known as Washington Fields Road, that old piece there? That's still a public road, isn't it?
It is still a public road.
So that's also going to influence their future design, because they'll have to incorporate that road into their community as well.
Oh, yeah, that existing will stay, and they will have to develop it. Correct, improve it.
And improve it from what it's, well, I guess it doesn't have much left to it.
And I believe it's a 60-foot.
It's been ridden pretty hard over the years.
Yeah, pretty much the city's gonna get a new half a road out of that, at least for 2 lanes of traffic out of that, because, there's not much there to work with. But that road we just renamed to the extension of Camino Real, just here in the last month or so.
That's right, I remember.
I'm
that.
happy about it, yeah.
Good
Yeah,
job.
it brings back, so,
The real way.
yeah.
Any other questions for Drew?
What, the planning commission, you said leaned more towards the 10,000 square foot lot, or,
Well, they would like, there were several of them that would like to have seen it
so
more to
what
that.
is, over a project like this, what's the number of, if you max it out, what would be the difference in number of lots between 8,000 and 10,000?
Is that not in the minutes, I think? Because I know we kind of
I
played
didn't
with that.
see,
Let me just
I
see
didn't
if,
see any minutes.
For some
so-
reason, we didn't get the minutes, Drew, of the planning commission meeting.
well, they might have been on a different,
They're
I
not on
looked
any
on
of
all
them.
the
I'm
different
sorry?
tabs, I
No.
don't see them.
because I know we played with these numbers a bit. It went from like 230 down to one. I'm trying to remember if we talked, it might have brought it more down to a 175, 180. I'm just, again, I'm sorry,
So you estimated how many maximum on the
Two-
8,000?
probably 225 to 235.
Okay.
Again, because it's hard because roads and the configuration take
No,
that out.
I understand, we're just,
And we're
but
just
that's what
going
we're
off
looking
of-
at here too, is general numbers. That's all
Exactly.
we can look at this
And at
point,
the
because we don't know what's
R10,
gonna be
I
there.
think we talked about it would probably take it down to about 175, 185.
Okay.
On that, so, you're talking about a 50 lot probably difference on the two zones. And again, that's very rough estimations.
No, that's fine, that's what I'm looking for.
Any other questions for Drew? If not, this is a public hearing. We will open our public hearing for anyone that says come to speak concerning zone change application Z13-06. You're welcome to come forward. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council.
Make a motion that we,
There's a few people that looks like.
You better jump. We're not going to sit around all day and wait for you back there. Hey,
I'm not that quick. Jim Raines, Bush and Gudgel, representing Walt Plum, who's also here. Randy from our office is here too. When you bring her up, she's a lot better to talk to than I am. So. Right now, our proposed plan for this thing only generates 176 lots. And that's because of the configuration of the pipelines. On the aerial photo, you can see the pipelines a little bit better there. See the roads cut in there.
Those
That-
roads are
Yeah,
what
so
trace.
it's a little more obtrusive than Mike's pens were, but you can see. And they are easements to the Soil Conservation Corps, so we have no plan on trying to relocate those storm drains. Just abandoned easements would be a process greater than we want to undertake, so, and plus the cost. So we are configuring the lots to correspond with those drainages, and we only get 176 lots. The R18 request is to allow some flexibility in lot sizes to accommodate the weird geometry of the property. Also, I want to point out too, this picture kind of says it better than I could. If you look at the roadways in yellow, which these are all major, 3650 is an 80-foot collector road, Washington Fields is a 106-foot collector road, and then the Southern Parkway, and you can see 3650 goes out to the new proposed interchange on the Southern Parkway. So we're kind of surrounded by major arterial roadways. Also, the red is commercial, the little darker red's neighborhood commercial, the magenta is medium high density, and then you can see the R16 subdivision of Steeplechase, and then the blue is the school. And then we put the general plan designation of the park in the area between us and Stuckey Farms Development. That's general plan showing as a park, that's partially private land and partially BLM property. I think, Mike, you were talking about a cemetery in that area. And then you see the detention basin, the pond, which is owned and guaranteed to remain as a flood control device. So we're surrounded by arterial roads, we're surrounded by commercial, high density, and open space. Really, this is an ideal place for higher density development, even possibly even higher density we're requesting for. But we feel the market in the area would justify single family lots, and the R18 allows us to put a very similar and compatible lot in the area and work with the related geometries that's created by the storm drains. So, in a nutshell, I think the picture kind of says it makes sense, but I'd be willing to answer any questions for you.
Are you looking with this development to do any type of, utilizing any of our bonus density programs, or are you just looking for a straight zone
Just a
type of
straight-
program?
A straight zone, it doesn't really fit the bonus density program because of the geometry and the isolation of it.
Okay,
It's not in the fields. The bonus density thing's kind of written for the fields to protect the green areas of the fields, and this isn't part of that.
okay.
It's kind of an isolated corner surrounded by commercial property.
I'm not sure if you've planned this far on it, but I'm looking at those pipeline traces there. The one as it exits the property on the south, is it your vision that that's gonna be a road someday, or?
We have that a road, yes,
So that'll be a road across your parcel and then across the next parcel?
assuming that's
That's-
what
that-
they choose to do, yeah.
I agree, but
assume
that's how
that's
you're looking at it. So
Sure.
if it weren't a road that continued south, it would just end right at your property line?
Those large diameter pipes are better in roads than they are elsewhere. Maintenance, they're pretty, it's a big pipe, I think
How are
it's
the-
right at the 54.
How are the roads gonna deal with the east boundary?
The east boundary, we back lots up to that property line generally. It's not a grid, it's a nice layout because of
Well, I'm
some
curious.
curvilinear design and
I'm curious to see how you're creative with that, because I imagine it's,
Randy's done a good job.
Throw some
We didn't
curveballs.
bring that tonight because there's, proper processes.
yeah, we're not there
We
yet.
do have it laid out. We went ahead and laid it out after the general plan amendment based on anticipation of receiving this zone. But it really shows that this isn't sitting out in the middle of Washington Fields. It's kind of a unique piece with the commercial and all those arterial roadways and then the pond. It's really kind of an island, if you will, out there. In reality, we need to buffer. We could front lots onto Camino Real, but we feel like we've actually turned and backing on with a landscape strip along there because we feel like we need a little buffer for our lots from that commercial. So, that's something we've done on our own.
To the north of the piece or the parcel in question, it splits between low density and very low density. And the general plan was just amended to take what was almost split in half with your parcel to amend from low density and very low density to the entire piece being low density. So the map, doesn't show that there is very low density to the north of the piece in question.
But if you look at our density, of our combined density of two parcels, we're within that range. We're not maximizing it out. The zoning request is a geometry issue, not a density issue. To make the lots fit because of weird geometry created by the storm drains.
So there'll need to be a few smaller lots to make it work.
Yeah, but the majority of them are larger lots. You can see 176 is not, it's a lot closer to R110 density than it is to R18 density.
So are you, and again, I understand we're not discussing the subdivision, we're not approving the subdivision, but if you have done preliminary design, how many lots have you got on there?
176?
176.
Yeah, so we're at the density of 3.14, which is, 3.2 is an R110 density, so we're actually out of R110 density. It's just, it really isn't a density or the type of home or the value of the home. It would be the same subdivision. It would just make the lots really more expensive than they need to be to get that market segment. It's a good plan for the property, and I think it's a good density considering when you really look at that map, it kind of shows you where you're at. It's a unique parcel because of, the yellow roads. We didn't show Camino Real because it's a major roadway, but it's not an arterial. It's a collector road. So arterial roadways are 5-lane roads with Gregor, and so you'd see that we got a lot of big roadways and a lot of traffic in this area. And with the Southern Parkway going into that new interchange, which is the middle interchange for Washington City to Warner Valley and the Washington Dam Road are your three interchanges. changes on the Southern Parkway.
So
This
that's
is
the only other interchange, is that one?
This is the third.
The 3650?
And it's not funded, but it's planned.
Yeah.
So you can see it's going to be a very different world out there at some point when growth occurs.
Well, and it is. It's a tough spot because to the north, you've got larger estate-type homes with bigger yards, but to the south, you've got a school, you've got higher density properties, and frankly, there is a need for affordable housing. My biggest concern, and I voted against the general plan amendment, is that I was concerned that in fact, it's in the minutes that I thought it allows you to come in and ask for 8,000 square foot lots. And so when I saw it come back through the very next go-around with 8,000 square foot lots, I frankly had some concern. I do understand that there is some unique issues with the property that you have to work around, and I do like the fact that you have some affordable housing with some varied lots. Drew, I would ask you, can we, in a motion to change a zone, can we limit the number of lots in that? Can we approve an R18 zone, but say maximum on this parcel would be 176 lots, which essentially would be the equivalent of an R110?
No, you really couldn't do that.
Can we
Because
just hold
you-
that cartel plat?
You could look at it, you could come with a plat to you when it comes for a subdivision. You could say, I don't feel comfortable, even though it's R18,
Well-
The
but
other thing that's not reflected.
Yeah, that's not really a good.
then it's not. It
Once,
looks,
and I guess that's kind of the root of the concern is once we approve a zoning, then we're held to that.
And
And
this is
so
what your
if
planning
if they
commission
did
could
come
do.
back with all 8,000 square foot lots, there's nothing we could do. And so I, from my standpoint, would like to have some leverage to have either a mixture of lot sizes and frankly, some bigger lot sizes. Hearing in this meeting that 176 lots is kind of what the conceptual vision is for this. I'm comfortable with that, but I don't know if the developer plans to build this out. I don't know if it's going to be sold. I don't know if what's conceptual today is going to be conceptual tomorrow. So I have some concerns on those lines.
and that's what your planning commission, you had two planning commissioners that felt the same way, because though this developer's here now and says tonight that that's what their plan is, Joe Developer B could show up and offer Joe Developer A that's here more money for that, and the zoning is R18, and they
Yeah.
could squeeze out R18 lots. I'm not saying that could happen, but it's a possibility.
Stranger
And-
things have happened.
And strange, yeah, and that's the only reason you feel, I'm not saying that's gonna happen by any means, I'm not even, but it is a possibility, because other things,
You're saying they could make the application?
they could come in with a subdivision with all R18 lots.
But
and-
we wouldn't
we
have
could
to
all-
approve
we
it
could
either.
all vote no on
Well,
it.
we
You
would
wouldn't
not
have
have a
to, but-
basis not to, really.
Sure we would.
Help me understand how.
Everything we've heard tonight.
It'd be a new developer coming in and a new proposal and.
Unfortunately, these processes are established by state statute. We can't change them, and we're happy to commit the 176 lots. But I think the best thing I can do right now is introduce you to Walt Plum Jr. Walt Plum, and I'll get on the soapbox a little bit here, so I apologize. Walt is one of the major developers in the state of Utah. Him and his father and his family, they've been around for as long as I have, for 30-plus years. I've dealt with them for 30-plus years. This isn't somebody coming in new. They've developed hundreds of, if not thousands of lots in Washington County. They're as solid and as well-established as you can get. They're probably one of the, not the largest, one of the largest commercial developers in all of the state of Utah. So I'll introduce you to Walt Jr. and
While he's coming up, I think Drew is correct. You're approving the zone change tonight with all that intends under the ordinance, not, because quite frankly, there's not a burden of even showing lot layouts and those type of things.
Well,
So
and I've said that.
correct.
We understand
Yeah.
that.
So you can't
That's why we're
add
so-
the,
No.
and that kind of protects the council a little bit too on that process.
I appreciate all your time tonight, and I definitely can understand your concerns with this property.
Mr.
Kind of-
Plum, would you,
Yeah,
just
sure.
for the record, would you?
Walt Plum, I'm with Plum Holdings Gardner Company. We have developed quite a few lots in Washington City and St. George. Partners with the Gardner Company, we office with them. They developed almost all of Green Springs and built it. We were the developers of Last Sun. We recently finished Northbridge. We did Treasure Valley with Entz Homes. We bought that when it was in trouble and developed it out with Entz Homes. Doing numerous projects in Ivins and Santa Clara. All of our projects, I mean, I don't think you could drive around the city and say you wouldn't live in any one of our communities. Part of our problems is every project has a different name, and we probably don't brand our company very well. But the reason why we got interested in this property, it's kind of funny, especially because Dixon is here tonight. We were developing Treasure Valley with Entz Homes, and coming from up north, I guess we're not very bright, but I one day was out there and I figured out that wow, there's only 2 entrances into the fields, and there's absolutely no commercial. And I mean, that took me, I don't know how many trips out there to realize that, but I finally got it. And being as our company mainly develops commercial, I had Jim Raines prepare a map that showed all of the commercial in this area to see if we could somehow focus on it. And since then, I've been trying to get a meeting with Dixis Andreas, because I know she has the key corner. But as we were doing this kind of analysis and studying this corner, we stumbled upon this property. We looked at purchasing Steeplechase and didn't work out, but we noticed everything was fairly high density, which supports a commercial area. This particular piece physically cannot fit more than 176 units on it. It just physically cannot do it with the 2 easements that are there. I think when it comes to you, I actually think it'll have less lots than that, because we'll want to have some open space in there, and we'll want to have entry features and things like that. And so there absolutely can't be more than 176 lots. We are developing it out. Entz Homes is going to jump from Treasure Valley over to here. They're almost out of inventory there, and I wish Troy could have come tonight, but yeah, we hope to be involved in some of the commercial development in the area, and we're excited about the project. We love the soccer fields. Our kids play on the soccer fields. Thank you. Is there any questions that you have?
So I just want to reiterate, your plan is not to sell the property. Your plan is to develop
it. Yeah,
the
we
property.
develop. We're in Ivins right now. We're starting construction. The Riverbend property. I mean, we have several properties that are starting.
So if this zone change were approved tonight, would we see preliminary plat application following shortly?
Yeah, there's some work that needs to be done. I mean, I'm not the engineer. I know there's some work that has to. Storm drainage, that's an issue with the property. We have to figure that out. But yeah, the Entz Homes is out of inventory, pretty close to out of inventory in Treasure Valley, and they'd like to jump over to this property. So yeah, we would hopefully start here pretty soon, as long as we can figure out some of these engineering issues.
The other thing that I think bears on this piece is the location of the airport, and that it's got planes flying over it every day, and I think that also lends itself to it.
It's definitely not what we call an estate type lot subdivision. We have the retention basin to deal with on the east side, commercial corridor on the west side. I get confused down here in St. George. I hope I got my east and west. But and then, as you mentioned, you've got the airplanes flying overhead. So we still think it's going to be a great community. It will provide some affordable housing. And more than anything, it's going to provide some rooftops. So someone like our company, if we end up being the ones that are able to develop that commercial development, could start. I think it'd be a huge help for the fields to, have a grocery store and have a gas station.
Did you do any analysis to see how many lots you could put on there if you went with R10, R110?
We didn't. I haven't done any.
Do you have a feel for that, what the reduction
we would probably lose, Brandy would have a better feel. Maybe 20%.
20%, so about 34 lots maybe?
Yeah. And if it was an estate type project, I'd probably say, we can live with that, but it's just not that. And the product of the type of home won't change. The rooftops help the commercial. 3 units to the acre is basically a 10,000 square foot zone anyway. We're at 3.14.
Any other questions?
I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bum. Anyone else from the audience? Seeing none, council, we'll bring her
Any
back.
neighbors that have any thoughts on higher density properties there?
Come on, come on, Dixie. Come on up and,
I'm not concerned about the property or what they're doing, other than my heart aches every time they build another house down there. But that's just selfish.
Dixie, for the record, just in the
Dixie
microphone. there, bud.
Andrus.
Thank you.
My concern is that road that's between us, both corners, the one that goes on to the, whatever, the Washington Fields Road, and then the one that's on 3650 South, are both accidents waiting to happen, but there's not a lot of traffic down there, except occasionally. But so, and I know that's a city thing, and that's probably way ahead of schedule, but that needs to really be looked at, just so that the accesses and the, getting in and off, and where those get onto that road. Just, both of those corners are just really dangerous. Right now, there's not a whole lot of traffic since the Washington Fields Road went down the middle of our property, but that's just my concern. The other sounds fine.
Usually when they come back in with the preliminary plat, they have to do a traffic study, which will then
Okay.
facilitate
And
your
I have
concerns.
seen water behind that dike.
I bet you
That's 'cause
have.
I'm as old as the dike.
Well, and their preliminary plat will have to, that one corner on the north is a real looping, kind of a
Correct.
gradual bend, and I think they'll have to make that a little more correct.
Correct. Anyone else from the audience? Seeing none, council.
If there's no others, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
A motion from Councilman Hudson to close our public hearing,
I'll second it.
second by Councilman Truman.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Second Miller, aye.
Turek, aye. It's unanimous. 6D, consideration to approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-13-06 to change present zone from OS to R18 zone.
I think I just need to express a few concerns that I have regarding the change out there. I know Mr. Raines talked about it's a different world out there in the fields, and unfortunately it seems to be turning into a different world out there in the fields. But I can't help but go back to the history of all of the surveying we've done of people in the fields and in developing the plans in the fields, and it's our last area of truly the open space, the estate lot area out there. And I think any time we do a zone change and the developer wants to have the highest density possible in that zone change, it's going to be the high density creep that's going to infiltrate the fields, and pretty soon what we've had left is one of the attractions to Washington will be dissipated. So I'm not comfortable with approving a project along that line. I don't think, notwithstanding what we're seeing out there, that is really consistent with the property next to it, where it's still the estate-sized lots. I think I'd be a lot more comfortable knowing that something larger was going in there. So I don't think it's appropriate for the area. I don't think it's appropriate and consistent with the wishes of our citizens over the years, with the surveys we've taken, with the openness and nature of the fields. And if we continue to keep approving the the highest density possible, pretty soon we won't have anything left but asphalt, sidewalks, and rooftops, which is, I don't think, why people come to Washington City.
I'm trying to think of the word, but if this gets approved for the 8,000 square foot lots and it comes back with the preliminary plat, let's say in a month, and let's say there's 200 units and we're not comfortable with that, can we deny it just because we don't like the fact that it has 200 instead of 176?
Yes.
Sure, you can always deny.
Nothing makes us vote yes on
Yeah, you start to move just a little bit more as you move through this process, a little bit more to.
I would think we could, especially since the discussions we've had tonight, we've had those
Sure.
assurances, and that's kind of the understanding that I'm at, that that's 176 units is where they've felt they can do, and so knowing that number of units, I think that's the number, that's a fair number.
I chuckle because it wasn't too long ago that this very engineer was here telling us that we had to vote a certain way because of the way the statutes are written, and we all voted opposite of that and sent him away. And we can do that. We don't, nothing makes us vote a certain way, and if they come back and represent to us a plan that we think was different from what they've told us tonight, we have the ability to turn it down.
Well, I was one that actually voted against the general plan amendment for this because I was concerned with what we were seeing in the fields. But to be honest with you, after seeing it here and learning of the drainage concerns, it certainly eases my concerns that I had through the general plan amendment. And to me, I think that when we have a developer that comes to us in good faith and has basically promised us, I'm going to take him at his word. And until he gives me a reason not to trust him, I'm going to trust him.
If I might just interject, you didn't have the privilege for the minutes, and what turned it, was the 3-2 vote I was telling you. What really they took into consideration, the three that voted for it, was looking at the blue piece with the school, the red and the pink pieces with the commercial, the pond. They took, that was what I think pushed the three of them to vote for, because they realized when that builds out, still understanding exactly what you feel, Councilman Truman, about having that too much, because I had two of them that voted against it, felt pretty much that. But when the group of five waited out, that's why it went 3-2, was they took into consideration the commercial, the school, the roads. They just, several of them made that comment that they just felt with all that happening, it's kind of hard to ask someone to put 15,000 square foot lots with all that going around it. I mean, asking people to build a very nice, comfortable home on a bigger lot with those surroundings to them, and that's just, again, because you didn't have the privilege of those minutes, that's kind of what drove the decision to the affirmative for the 3-2, based basically on that. And
Well, I'll be honest, that's kind of what helped me come to that, is you see how that particular parcel is kind of surrounded by commercial and buffered with bigger roads. And certainly, like you say, with that commercial, anybody knows that commercial survives off rooftops. And especially when you can get them there, and if it just helps us, basically, I mean, we're still at an R110. That's about what they've committed to that. And that's where I'm comfortable. If it was certainly coming in at an R18, I'd have probably some different feelings, but R110 I'm a little more comfortable with.
Do we know the lot sizes that are down at the Stuckey Farms area that are being developed now?
those particular part of that PCD, those lots are roughly 8,000 and 9,000 square foot.
Okay.
Some a little bit bigger.
7,000. Okay.
Yeah, but they came back and buffed up some of them, but yeah, but again, the PCD allows that
Right.
flexibility. So I would say the average is probably 8 and 9.
Okay.
Because they did come back with some bigger ones, but there are a few 7,000 square foot ones there are.
And they have a park and some other open space and amenities, though, that the straight.
Well, they had to
zoning
come back and put
wouldn't.
the park in because of a drainage issue, but still, yeah, they, the plan was to have that.
Well, and it is a beautiful map. I mean, it is a little, it does point out the things that they want us to see on the general plan. I know that some of the red commercial property north of 3650 South is general planned commercial, but I don't know how soon it will be commercial. And I do know also, directly north of the parcel, it's a mixture of low density and very low density, which is what this parcel was before the general plan change. I'm still quite torn, frankly, on the.
Isn't that one piece commercial right there north of it, though? That Cougar Academy was?
Well, it's a PUD. We it had that flexibility because it's more of a school, that we put in residential zones, but they had kids staying there, so that's why it had to go to the PUD. Was the only choice they had. And, if you want to look at it, pound per pound, dollar for dollar, I would lend to think that it's more of a commercial operation than a residential operation, because it is a school, private school.
I don't think that's how we voted on it, though. It was commercial. It was the Cougar Academy for the children. I guess it's out of business now. It can sustain itself out there.
Well, somebody
so-
just purchased it.
with
It's
some
being
other
reopened
use.
for the
going to
same
be
use.
reopened for the same use.
For the same use?
Yeah.
Any more discussion, council? Guess we'll look for a motion.
I'll make the motion, Mayor Pro Tem, that we approve an ordinance adopting zone change request Z-13-06 to change the present zone from open space to R18.
Motion by Councilman Segmiller for approval,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilman Hudson.
Truman, A.
Staley, nay.
Hudson, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye. Passes 3-2. Item number 7, tentative budget. Consideration to approve a resolution accepting the 2013-2014 fiscal year tentative budget for Washington City and setting the date for a public hearing to consider adoption of the final budget. Roger Carter, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. As per state statute, we are presenting to the legislative body the tentative budget for the 2014 budget. And just for the benefit of the audience, this is a budget, a combined total budget of $42,265,529, with a general fund budget of $11,917,413. And then I won't necessarily go through the rest. But upon adoption of the tentative budget, all that does is that initiates the public process, which we'd be proposing, as you'll see in the resolution, that the public hearing be scheduled for May 22nd, with final budget adoption on June 12th in order to meet the state statute final budget adoption the end of June. So, I will mention one item too that from our discussion last week is, and this again is probably important, we have a total fund balance usage in this budget of $11,000. Last week we were talking about almost $200,000, but if you remember, there was one piece that we were still working on, that is the fleet. We indicated that it would be a significant piece, but because it's a new, because of the reallocation, it reduced the fund balance from $200,000 to $11,295 fund balance dependents out of the general fund. So that was a change just from a week ago that I just wanted to point out to you.
Well, we like that change.
Yeah, that was a good change.
Yeah, it's a good change.
We knew it'd be significant, but we didn't know it'd be quite that high, but it was a good change.
So this just is basically is setting the date for the public hearing, setting it out there for the public to look at. This isn't saying we agree to it at this point or anything, it's just letting us set the dates.
Not only do we do it that way, but I think a member of the council says that every year as well. So we're very consistent in our pattern.
Make sure everybody knows. We still have time to look at it, so.
It's essentially our invitation, right? We're telling them, we've talked with you, we've given you our input, and we want the public to look at it and give us their input.
Absolutely.
And the hearing will be set when that can happen.
City Manager, would you share with our public how they may view that, maybe?
Well, we have a couple, and Denise can help me. I think we put it at the library, a hard copy at the library. We do have hard copies available at the city office, and as well as we'll post. I think last year we've actually notified the public in a variety of ways, including Facebook, I believe we did last year as well, which we'll probably do again. And I think we'll put we'll have the draft electronic on our website as well, so they can see it.
Perfect. Great.
And I think on behalf of the city council, if I may, I'd make a plea to our citizenry to take a look at the budget, see how our money is spent, and we certainly would appreciate input. That's what this process is all about, so come and make comments.
That's a good point. You know, it's interesting, this budget looks a lot like last year's budget. We do see revenue up just a little bit from a few different sources, but we also see some of the expenses that we don't control, which doesn't allow us really much flexibility going forward. So there aren't a lot of changes other than mainly just tightening the belt on a lot of operations. So I know a lot of the departments really did what they could based on the costs that are passed on to the city. That puts us in a tough spot on some things.
Well, with that, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution accepting the 2013-2014 fiscal year tentative budget, setting the date for public hearing to consider adoption of the final budget.
What's the date again, Manager?
May 22nd for the public hearing.
Setting the date of May 22nd for the public
Great.
hearing.
We have a motion by Councilman Hudson,
Second.
second by Councilman Segmiller.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye. It's unanimous. Item 8, Community Center. Consideration to all the renting and or leasing of the community center on Sundays. Councilman Bill Hudson.
We discussed this in our workshop meeting a little bit last night. We have not had a formal policy directed from the council in the past for our community center as far as renting out of the community center for different events. And we've had a request from a group for that. And so this policy would just allow us to have that that in writing. We discussed it last night that at this point we did not feel it appropriate to have that rented out on Sundays, that it was hard to control labor and the way budgets are and things like that right now. Sundays were not the day that we wanted to have that open, and so there is a policy statement here which Council Starkey put together very quickly this evening for me. Basically says, in order to qualify to the public and to city staff, whether the city should allow the reception center to be open for use by the public on Sunday, the city council has discussed and considered the various reasons to continue with the current informal policy not allowing use of the reception center on Sundays, and reasons allowing the reception center to be open for use on Sundays. Wherefore, based upon the discussions and consideration by the city council, the Washington City Council issues the following policy. The reception center and related facilities at the Washington City Community Center shall not be open for rent or by use by individuals, groups, or organizations on Sunday. Any exceptions to this policy must be pursuant to formal action by the City Council. Nothing requires the City Council to consider any request for an exception to this policy. In order for such a request to be presented, goes through the process, and so that's basically.
I guess the clarification is, I thought it was for the reception center. I think it changed it to the entire community center, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So with that change in the policy.
And in our work session last night, there were some good points made as far as tightening the belt at the community center and even reducing hours and labor costs and some other things collectively. So it just clarifies that, you know, we can't afford to operate on.
And the group that came to us wasn't necessarily going to be a major impact. It probably wouldn't have impacted our budgets in a huge way, but as we looked at that policy, if you allow, we felt that if one group was in there, it'd be hard to tell another group no, even though a different group could have a much larger impact. And so I think it's a good policy, and so that's the way I would recommend that we go.
Great. So we have a motion and a second. Didn't we?
No, not yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, well, I guess we need a motion.
Yeah.
We've had it read. Sorry.
I'll make the motion that we approve the policy regarding the renting or leasing of the community center on Sundays.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Hudson.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Councilman Staley.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye. That's unanimous. Item 9, Siemens report. Consideration to approve the technical energy plan presented by the Siemens Industry Incorporated. Roger Carter, City Manager.
I think based upon the discussion last night, we were probably looking at a table. I uploaded that stuff. I don't know if you got a chance to see that or if I even notified you. I
You
think
sent
I
us
did.
an email. We
Oh,
just haven't
okay.
had a chance to look yet.
Okay, so I knew you wanted some time with that, so I think based upon that, I think there was probably the direction is to table.
Based on that, I'll make a motion that we table this item for 2 weeks until our next meeting on the 23rd.
I think
Okay.
2 weeks is enough time.
Were we going to discuss that at our workshop as well?
Yeah,
I
let's
thought we
have
I
wanted
think that was
on
the
that.
anticipation. We had a plan for those two.
I'd like to look at some of the further specifications and the details of that report, and then I'd like to discuss it in our next workshop, and I guess
Kind
have
of ferret it out.
for action on the.
Yeah, and if there are any questions, I'll just speak a little bit, probably for Siemens, because I'm sure they'd say this anyway. If there are questions that come up, if you could direct those, that Siemens can answer, let's direct those over to them as soon as possible so they can maybe begin to address those.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, we have a motion to table this for our next workshop meeting and council meeting action.
Correct.
I'll
Did the
second that.
Did the manager make that motion?
No,
No,
I made
that was
that.
Councilman Hudson made that motion.
Motion.
It was seconded by Councilman Truman.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye.
Didn't you say one day I'll get the chance to do that? It won't be valid, but I get the chance to do
I thought
it.
you took it. That was good.
He was trying to give you credit. He put you in the stat book. Item 10, report from officers from assigned committees. Anybody have reports?
No meeting since our last one for me.
Yeah, my committees haven't met for a bit, although I know I got the packet, and, well, I got 2 meetings coming up this next month, so.
I would give just a brief report on Cotton Days. It was a huge success. A big thank you goes out to the citizens and the staff that worked so hard on that. I know that the mayor and I had a chance to talk to some of those committee members, and we're trying to convince them to come in and be recognized a little bit for the service and give us a more personal report at one of our future meetings, but the short report is that it was a very big success, and building and going forward for future years should continue along that route.
I guess I will report, Mayor Pro Tem, I attended the junior rodeo as the council representative, and I love it. It was a great success. Our hearts go out to the Larson family and everything they do, and giving us that place to celebrate our heritage. My little boy rode a sheep and got stepped on in the process. And he's proud of his little trophy. I also attended the fishing derby that you headed up, and I thought that was a roaring success. I know the kids loved that. And then I also had a chance to be at the tractor pull and the Saturday morning events, and I thought we had a great success. I thought the new schedule worked okay. People picked that up, and I don't think it hurt the event at all. And so.
And we had good attendance at the pancake breakfast as well as part of the Ironman. A lot of people were fed and seemed to enjoy it.
Great. Thank you. Any other reports? No. Okay, item 11, our city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a couple of items that we kind of keep the council and the public updated on a little bit. Public works items. The Washington Fields Phase 6, that's the Stuckey Farms to the Southern Parkway. That is advertised for bid closing on May 23rd. Let me go over a couple of those because we have all those road pieces that are going on out there. So let me cover those right now. Southern Parkway Phase 3A, that's the airport to Warner Valley. And that, of course, is the one that's under construction. And I've actually asked Mike now to kind of give me the close dates on when we're anticipating. So we're looking at September to completing that project. They're moving along very well. And actually the one that's moving along extremely fast is the Southern Parkway Phase 4A. That's the dam road up to Sand Hollow. That's started later, and so that'll be completed around November, but that's moving along very quickly as well. And then the other piece that kind of was referred to tonight a little bit, and really is a good indication to us, and that's the Southern Parkway Phase 3B. That's from Warner Valley to Washington Dam. That's through Long Valley area. And so they've started design on at least the grading package. They don't have the total funding for all of that, but once we get our foot in the door, that's good. And so that they have the funds for the grading package is a good move to get that. Because what that'll do is that'll just take all that traffic off the Washington Fields Road eventually when it's coming in from the east. So we're glad to see that. The slurry project, of course, will start on May 28th. That's an important one, I think, for the public to recognize. And I think, Mike, we post that on our website where we're at. So if the public has any concerns, wants to avoid the slurry project, they can pop onto the website and see what's going on with that. We talked a bit about this last night, but I'd probably encourage everyone, if you have an opportunity again, to go up to the Covington home. We're about 90% complete on the landscaping, which will be 100% completed this weekend in preparation for the Mayor Walk. Matter of fact, that's one of the places they're walking to, and then they're also going down to Adair Springs, which is functioning as well. And it's really beautiful up there. So if you all get a chance, and the public as well, just feel free to pop in and walk around the grounds, and I think you'd be very pleased with all of that.
Do you know where the mayor plans to convene that walk? I know that Saturday.
And I think it was
morning's a
Nison's.
busy spot at Veterans Park.
Yeah, I think it was Nison's.
No, Veterans. We're starting. He's going to start at Veterans.
At the
He
grocery
didn't-
store?
Well,
I just know that there's.
they do have permission to park
Yes.
parking on the old Nison's parking lot. He just asked to announce at Veterans, so I imagine
We ought to maybe
probably listen for the mayor to hoot and holler and
look for the mayor.
watch for the mayor.
You know what, I spoke to him a little bit last night, and he's got some stories ready, and I think the plan is to walk along Telegraph up towards Cottontown Village, stay on the north side, but show off some of the historical features and Nison Park, and then come back and loop around and end at the Covington home. I think that's kind of how he explained it last night, but he's looking forward to it.
These hikes have had a lot of response in our neighboring
Correct.
communities. They've had up to 1,000 people at some of these hikes, so.
I just know that park's pretty busy Saturday morning with little
With the
baseball.
baseball and all,
Yeah.
yeah. I would bet you'll probably see them in front of the museum. That's just my guess, but the mayor didn't say. He just said it would convene here. So we just have to kind of watch for the mayor and
And listen.
listen for his Pied Piper whistle.
Just a couple of other items is we are planning on coming before the council. I believe it'll be next council meeting, next work session probably, to propose a cemetery location and have some discussion with the council with respect to that. And then we are beginning our discussions. I think I mentioned that we are looking at refinancing, again, because of interest rate, and for the very same reasons we've done much of the refinancing within our city anyway. We are looking at refinancing those generator units that we have both with, not with Santa Clara because we're not within the call period of that, but with Hurricane. And we've got, matter of fact, those bids are out on the street right now. Now, this is a UAMPS issue, so, but it affects us because we pay the debt service on it. But so UAMPS is...
UAMPS holds the bond?
Yes.
Okay. We
Yeah.
just have agreed to
Pay
pay
that.
that, service that bond, correct?
Yeah. Essentially, UAMPS owns the units until we're complete. That's how
UAMPS
we...
has a better bond rating than us anyway, don't they?
Well,
Or,
I think bond rating wise, we're probably fine. UAMPS, I don't think, has a general rating because I don't think they can get a general rating. So they have to go out and get the ratings individually just like we do. We could get a general rating, but we just never have. But they're doing the exact same thing we did. They're looking at private placing because the market is not really, because of the strength of the credit, the market is not requiring a rating from a Moody's or a Standard & Poor's or a Fitch. And so they're private placing them right now. So that's out to bid just like what we went through. So they'll get the, but as part of this, it gives us an opportunity as well to redraft the contracts and all that are important because we found a couple things, because I think Kelly mentioned to you that we will be picking up all 3 of these units and bringing them home. Hurricane had the option to purchase them. They looked at that, they discussed it, they decided that they would not be purchasing it, so we will be picking up the unit, bringing it here. Santa Clara really didn't have that option. We had a conference call today with all the cities as well as UAMPS, and so we're working through the language with respect to that and kind of refining some things. So we should see some improvement in debt service with the refinancing, and then of course make it very clean and comfortable as we pick up the units and bring them back home. And other than that, that's all I have.
Do you want to share anything at all with your new yourwashingtoncity.org at all?
Well, I can. We're excited about this. We realize it's a process more than an event, probably. So, but we do encourage our citizens, and we have a variety of forums that our citizens can interact with our staff and city council. And we have what's called Wash QA, and what that is for questions that you might have or concerns, specific concerns. Those come into the city through Wash QA, and all this is accessible through our web platform. All this comes in, and then it's directed to the appropriate staff member to address the issue and to respond back to the citizens. A component we just added was what we call Your Voice, which is basically a vote sourcing. And what that is that's to submit what your ideas for Washington City, what you would like to see happen with Washington City. It's not so much the form that you would submit complaints, we have the Wash QA for that, but rather what you would like to see in Washington, and then when you get involved in that, you're granted so many votes so that you can vote for your own or others' ideas, and then as we build this process, we'll start to see those that have the most interest, and those will be directed to the council and looked at and responded to. And so we've incorporated all these ways to connect with Washington, from Your Voice to Wash QA to Facebook to Twitter to our website, and kind of a new platform called yourwashington.org. So we encourage the citizens to kind of pop on and play around with it a little bit.
Great. Thank you for sharing that with us. I know we were excited as a council because we love to interact with our citizenry, and hopefully our citizens will interact with us and use any of those platforms that are out there available. If there's nothing else, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So made.
I have a motion by Councilman Hudson,
I'll second it.
seconded by Councilman Truman.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Hudson, aye.
Sig Miller, aye.
Rick, aye. We are adjourned.
Then-